YouTube, what's poppin', baby? We are talking about some buy low wide receivers for Dynasty Fantasy Football. If you like Dynasty Fantasy Football, subscribe because we're on the way to 2,000 subscribers before the NFL draft. And if you like the video, like the video. First player we're going to be talking about today is going to be DJ Moore. DJ Moore has kind of been a Dynasty darling for a long portion of his career because he came into the NFL at a super young age of 22. And it felt like in his rookie season that was all the way back in 2018, there were a ton of flashes of potential. But then we saw in that year two breakout that he had in 2019, 15.4 fantasy points per game was the wide receiver 14. In that Carolina offense, we always talked, hey, if only he could get a quarterback. He has the target shares. I mean, back in 2021, had 162 targets and really has not been able to get past that mark since. Now, last year with the Chicago Bears, we said, hey, him coming to Justin Fields, as much as some people didn't like Justin Fields and his overall upside, this was the best quarterback that DJ Moore has played with up to this point. Now, DJ Moore, what did he do with Justin Fields? 136 targets, so not 162, but 136 ain't too shabby. That is the second most targets he's had on his career in 17 games, 96 receptions, 1,300 yards, 14.2 yards per reception, 8 total receiving touchdowns, which was a career high for him, 1,400 air yards, 16.9 fantasy points per game, put him as the wide receiver 9. Now, seeing his buddy Justin Fields get traded away, that doesn't feel good. But what do we have coming into the Chicago Bears offense? We have Caleb Williams. And now, I know having a rookie quarterback come in, typically we say that's not maybe the best thing for some of these elite level alpha type wide receivers. Then you add on to the fact that you got Keenan Allen, who's also another older but very solid slot veteran wide receiver who's been absolutely dominant for fantasy football purposes when he's out there and not banged up, gets added in as the clear wide receiver too. You still got Cole Kmet in this offense, and you got a plethora of running backs with DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson. So I hear you. You're probably like, Caleb, why are you buying DJ Moore low? Because right now on Keep Cherry Cut, DJ Moore is wide receiver 18, overall player 48. And I understand he's 27 years old. When you start to project some of these guys falling down the draft boards that are a little bit older, you usually like to say it's because people don't see the potential for him to continue to increase in value as he gets older or to continue to have that same fantasy football output. But DJ Moore's entering the prime of his career. And we add in Caleb Williams, and Caleb Williams might be better than Justin Fields already. So he might be getting the biggest quarterback upgrade of his career at 27 years old in an offense that is desperate for some highlight plays, for an offense that is desperate for his talents. And when we're looking at guys around him, I mean, he's behind Michael Pittman, behind Devontae Smith, behind Tyreek Hill, which is probably pretty fair. He's ahead of guys like T. Higgins, Nico Collins, DK Metcalf. I feel like DJ Moore is the cutoff on the bottom end of a tier that you could potentially be getting in, where we're looking at DJ Moore finished as a wide receiver 9 last year. And if we think things can get better in the Chicago Bears offense, all of a sudden we could be talking about DJ Moore, wide receiver 7, wide receiver 8. Could he get into the top 5 wide receivers? I think that's definitely a possibility if he can get to having like 150 to 160 targets, which he hasn't seen since like 3 years ago. DJ Moore for me, I think it's a great buy low opportunity to go get some DJ Moore, because a lot of people do not value DJ Moore like his keep trade cut value. When we start to look at trades that have involved DJ Moore here recently, I mean, we got the 106 and the 212 for DJ Moore and Jaden Reed. We're talking Romo Dunze probably at the 106, which is probably a pretty big trade, but I like this deal. I think that's huge. We got Jahan Dotson, a second round pick, and a second round pick for DJ Moore. That's another trade that I'm like, this is why I feel like DJ Moore's buy low, because everyone's kind of valuing him as that older level wide receiver. The exact same thing that we're valuing with AJ Brown, except AJ Brown's a little bit more expensive than DJ Moore. So being able to buy into DJ Moore at these kind of rock bottom prices, come on. If you need some fantasy football production on your dynasty team, go get some DJ Moore. I think he's a great buy low target. My next guy that I think is a great buy low right now is going to be Tank Dell. And I had Andy Holloway on the channel around 2 weeks ago, and Andy Holloway was in the same boat as me when we said Tank Dell really is about to enter that superstardom that we can come to expect from him. Of course, only played in 11 games last year before he had that season-ending leg injury, but 15 fantasy points per game, was wide receiver 18, 15.1 yards per reception. If we look at those game logs, 20 fantasy points in week 2, 25 fantasy points in week 3, had 29 in week 9, 18 in week 10, 28 in week 11, 17 in week 12. I mean, he was an absolute league winner up until the point that he got injured. Maybe the greatest thing, if you're looking to buy Tank Dell, happened where the Houston Texans trade for Stephon Diggs. And with the trade for Stephon Diggs, a lot of people are assuming that Tank Dell is the clear wide receiver 3 in this offense behind Nico Collins. For me, this trade really opened up a buy window for Tank Dell, not only because of his dynasty value, but because you got to put two things into consideration. Stephon Diggs is on a 1-year prove-it deal. Now, I think Stephon Diggs is probably 1 year in Houston Texans, and he's probably gone because he's going to get a bigger payday elsewhere. You also got Nico Collins, and there's an argument to be made. Maybe Nico Collins is more talented at this point than Stephon Diggs, but Nico Collins is also on the last year of his deal. And then you add on the fact that we could be looking at next year, Tank Dell being the clear wide receiver 1 for the Houston Texans. So there's a ton of upside already baked into Tank Dell's value. But then you also add into the fact that we've actually seen the fantasy football production. Tank Dell, just give him to me. Just give him to me. 20, like we said, 24 years old, overall wide receiver 24. He's behind Zay Flowers. He's behind Jordan Addison. He's ahead of TJ Hawkinson. He's ahead of Mark Andrews. Like, those are some interesting value points for my guy Tank Dell, when he clearly has performed better for fantasy football purposes, and he has the overall upside. If we look over at Dynasty Daddy, Tank Dell for Jaden Reed and a 204, give me Tank Dell on that all day, every day. We got Tank Dell and Christian Kirk for Jordan Addison, Deontay Johnson. As much as I love some DJ for Deontay Johnson for the Carolina Panthers, give me some Tank Dell right there. Someone just traded Breece Hall and a 208 for Tank Dell and the 201. That might be a little bit much, but you got to get the idea. There are some trades out there for Tank Dell that I think really buying in at this prices post Stephon Diggs is going to be a great thing to do for your Dynasty fantasy football team. My next guy that I think you should be buying low on is going to be Mike Evans. Now, being able to get 1,000-yard, 12 touchdown Mike is absolutely great, especially if you're contending. And this is definitely a contending move because Mike Evans is 30 years old. But every year we say, oh, the fall-off's going to happen for Mike Evans. Wide receiver 16, wide receiver 10, wide receiver 13, wide receiver 10 over the last 4 years. And this last year, 16.6 fantasy points per game, 13 receiving touchdowns, 15.9 yards per reception, 1,200 receiving yards, 79 receptions on 135 targets. Now, Mike Evans did get that big contract day for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, probably his final contract in the NFL. And Mike Evans right now is wide receiver 30. So his value on keep trade cut, if you look over the last year, it's definitely gone up a little bit more than it was last May, last July, but for good reason. He's gone up 11 spots, but it's because he's proven that he can be that veteran wide receiver, that he's not going to fall off. We look at guys ahead of him: Brian Thomas, Deebo Samuel, Jaden Reed, guys behind him, Devontae Adams, Rashee Rice, Stephon Diggs. Mike Evans just feels like a safe, high upside play to be adding as, can I get him as my wide receiver 3? Can I get him as my wide receiver 4? Those are moves that I'm liking to do for Mike Evans. Because like we said, with Baker Mayfield, him resigning maybe is not the best thing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers overall as a franchise. For Mike Evans' overall fantasy football value, we love it. Let's see some trades that have gone down for Mike Evans. 112 for Mike Evans in a 2-quarterback league. We just saw that he was right behind Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be gone at the 112. So I like that trade for Mike Evans. We got Mike Evans in a 2-quarterback league getting traded for the 305 and the 508 in a half PPR. That's crazy. Mike Evans for the 111. Like, if I can trade it back in first and go get Mike Evans, if I'm in a championship push or I was so close last year and I just need some more depth at that position, go give me some Mike Evans. I think that's a no-brainer buy low play to go get some Mike Evans. My next guy that I think you should be buying low as a wide receiver is going to be Cooper Kupp, 30 years old, 208, wide receiver 38, overall player 94 on keep trade cut. And I hear you. Last year for Cooper Kupp did not look great. 13.7 fantasy points per game, wide receiver 23. And the big worry for anybody that plays Dynasty Fantasy Football, and I should have probably talked a little bit more about this with Mike Evans because he's starting to get in there too, but when we talk about these 30-year-old wide receivers, is those hamstrings, is those ankles, and that happened to Cooper Kupp this last year. And when we look at really dominant wide receivers like a Julio Jones, those type of injuries start to pile up later on in the career, and it gets to be really unfortunate and really starts to tank their overall dynasty value, their NFL value. Now, Cooper Kupp, let's not forget, he's only one season removed from 22.4 fantasy points per game, which was the wide receiver 1 in only the 9 games that he played in 2022. But 9 games in 2022, 12 games in 2023, the injury concerns are definitely there. So this is a little bit more risky. As much as I think Mike Evans and those hamstrings are bad as well, Mike Evans tends to be able to play through those. Cooper Kupp, not so much. And then you add in the fact that Cooper Kupp is competing for targets now with Puka Nacua, who we can all say Puka Nacua is the cleared wide receiver 1 in this offense. There's going to be enough targets to go around the horn for Cooper Kupp to still get his, for Puka Nacua to get his. We've seen dominant 2 wide receivers in this Rams offense before. Look all the way back to Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods from a few years ago. I'm excited for Cooper Kupp. I understand the metrics wise, wide receiver 16 in target share, wide receiver 17 in target rate, wide receiver 7 in snap share, played from the slot, was wide receiver 9 on red zone targets, so he's getting those high leverage opportunities where it's ton of fantasy football points that could potentially be had. So I think Cooper Kupp right now is a buy low. And like we said, on Keep Trade Cut, when we're looking at guys around him, would you rather have Hollywood Brown or Cooper Kupp? I mean, Hollywood Brown, you're excited because we've seen Tyreek Hill absolutely blow up in this Kansas City Chiefs offense, but we've also seen a ton of other wide receivers not actually get their due. You got Xavier Worthy, who's ahead of Cooper Kupp. We got Amari Cooper, Christian Watson, A.D. Mitchell. Like, I think Cooper Kupp also is priced fairly low from the value that you're going to be able to get for him. So you're probably going to say to me, what are some trades, Caleb, that I could do to go get some Cooper Kupp? Let me give you a few different ideas of some Cooper Kupp trades that have gone down. We got Zach Moss and Cooper Kupp for the 204, 201. Goodness gracious, essentially the 201 for Cooper Kupp. Like, oh, goodness gracious, give me that side. We got Quentin Johnston and a 2025 round 1 pick for Cooper Kupp, DeAndre Hopkins, and a second. Oh my goodness. We got people out here fleecing. We got Marvin Mims, Kate Otten, and Deontay Johnson for Cooper Kupp. The 201 for Cooper Kupp and a 3rd round pick. Like, I understand the value on Cooper Kupp's low. I understand that we're worried about his overall consistency in this offense. But give me some freaking Cooper Kupp if that's what I have to do to help my dynasty team, to supplant my wide receiver room, to absolutely go after a chip. I think he's a great buy low candidate in the dynasty landscape. So if you guys like dynasty football, made it through this video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Here are 2 more videos that you can tune in to watch, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.